Got interested with midterm rentals and I saw that there's a lot of opportunity, just so much potential in the industry. When I joined the mentorship, my mindset shifted. Sales were not as consistent.
You're putting $0 into these properties.
Just having the mindset that you're trying to add value and help them.
Here's how David went from a struggling realtor to making over $50,000 a month in just 4 months. Mr. David Kamensky. One of the things that I really like about you is you're a very humble and hungry dude. And I'm not saying like hungry like a burger, kind of like I want a cheeseburger kind of guy. Like you are actually like, you want to build stuff. And when I first met you probably 4 months ago, I could feel like your ambitions in like what you had going on. So for those of you that aren't familiar with you, do you want to talk about like our introduction to each other and what you were doing before, and we can kind of lead into this really cool property and kind of dive into things. So
yeah, for sure. So my background is doing some real estate investing and also being a realtor. Yeah. So since I graduated from university, I started flipping houses, and then I got licensed shortly after that. Mm-hmm. So from there, you know, my sales were not as consistent. You know, as a lot of realtors, it's not really always super consistent. Right. So you kind of, you know, you have to kind of really work to be able to make the paycheck. So that's why I kind of got interested with midterm rentals, and I saw that there's a lot of opportunity with, you know, the consistency and just so much potential in the industry in general.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I connected with your brother probably about maybe 2 years ago, maybe even longer than that now that I'm thinking about it, at a meetup in Walnut Creek. I think he was at that meetup in Walnut Creek. And your brother does flips and wholesale, sub-2 stuff, so it's in your blood. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Because I feel like you're like 19, but you're not.
I'm 26.
26. It's the youngest 26-year-old I've ever seen in my life. You look like you just got out of high school right now. Like, I'm super jealous. So yeah, so David right now is doing cool things. Like this property that we're sitting in, and I think this is kind of the topic that I wanted to bring up, is there's certain people that in life or in business that are, you know, kind of moving along. You had a sales job, which is a realtor, right? Realtors are sales reps at the end of the day. And I think that a lot of realtors get stuck in the sense that they don't pivot into things to make additional income. So for you, you already saw what was happening. You're doing flipping, which a lot of agents don't actually do the work that they talk about doing. So I think it's cool that you did that. And then finding a niche, I think that's another really important piece in anybody's life or business, that you find a niche and you get really good at it. So the cool thing about what you're doing is that you saw that you were inconsistent. The market's changed. We all know that. And over the last probably year and a half, it's changed a lot. So sure. We're sitting at 7% interest rates right now, or a little bit higher than that actually. There's a lot of people that are buying properties fix and flip, and they're stuck with the properties they have. Like they can't sell them. There's a lot of things that they can't actually do with them. So I think, you know, for what you're doing, like this property here, you don't actually own. And I think we can dive into that co-hosting part, which I feel is one of the more natural progressions. I talk about it in the class all the time, is natural progression of owning property or even arbitraging, or like you're doing co-hosting. It'll come to you when people see what you're doing and you talk about it, people will start gravitating towards that. And I think a lot of people in this industry, we're always kind of wanting attention. We're like, hey guys, like look at me, look at me. But I feel like when people go out and do stuff, like that attention actually starts to be, like people come to you. And I think you're probably seeing that in your career right now, where you're talking about what you're doing, you're showing people by example, and the people that you were necessarily going after, they're now like gravitating towards you. Is that something you can kind of talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So when I joined the mentorship, AirVenture, my mindset kind of shifted. So I really try to focus, like this is going to be my main thing now. Yeah. And I really just put in a lot of work, put in a lot of time to building a lot of connections. So I just did a lot of networking consistently, whether meeting people like through the Facebook group that we have on AirVenture or just going to in-person events. I think the networking aspect really helps. So it kind of made me feel more comfortable that when I do have, you know, random questions or things that I need to kind of figure out, I felt like I had the support. Yeah. And it also started to just kind of compound from there, where, you know, after I had a few units set up, where the first ones are always the most challenging, yeah. But after, you know, you get a few going, then people really see like you know what you're doing, And then they really do just start to come to you. So I don't really seek out like new co-hosting opportunities at this point.
Yeah.
It's all just kind of referrals and then people just asking me to help them.
Got you. And one of the things about Dave too is that you're like me in a way. Like and maybe you're not an introvert. Are you an introvert?
Somewhat, yeah.
And the reason why I bring this up is because we had a meetup that you put together, the AirVenture team put together a while back, and Dave was like, "Don't let me talk." And on the way up there, it was a drive. It was like an hour and a half. I was like, "David's gonna talk. I want you to get uncomfortable, because that's where people have growth." And like I've watched you over this time start growing in different spaces. So let's talk about how, you don't necessarily own this property you're in right now. So can we talk about acquiring, like what that looked like to acquire other properties that you're acquiring without actually, buying anything or putting money into it? It's like you're helping in that. So can you talk about that co-hosting side?
Yeah. So the very first co-hosting property, for example, was just a property that I saw on Furnish Finder. It was really nicely decorated, and I knew it had a lot more potential to do better if you have the right connections in place to getting it booked at higher premiums.
Right.
So I kind of just talked to the owner. I didn't really have much to really show, just some of my previous flips that I had done before. And then from there, it's just kind of just networking with other people, going to meetups, telling people what you do. And then people, once you have a little bit of a track record, it's really easy to prove to them that you can really help them cash flow more, which especially in California is such a challenge for us with, how expensive the market is.
Yeah, it's super expensive here. But one of the cool things that, midterm rental operators, so just so you guys know, David focuses primarily on insurance relocation claims. And I'm sure you dabble in a little bit of everything, but that's kind of your main bread and butter. And the cool thing about that is that you get paid more for those claims. And what David's doing is I guess it is kind of marrying. You're building your resources, which is all the relocation specialists for all these different companies. You're solving problems for them, which means you're actively going after them, you're connecting with them, you're building relationships with them, and they're going to you now and saying, "Hey Dave, I need your help. I need you to find this property, find a house for me, this family needs a home." So you've created this network in seriously a short amount of time, and you're able to rely on that network now to supply you with clients for not only your homes, but co-hosted properties, which properties you don't own. So like you're putting $0 into these properties other than your sweat equity, which is the time that it takes to build relationships. Can you talk about what it's been like to build relationships on the insurance side?
Yeah, definitely. So in the beginning, it's really hard to make any kind of like traction in the space when you're just starting out. You're still kind of nailing down the script and everything.
Yeah.
But I think if you really spend a lot of consistent hours every week and you're organized with the people that you're calling, making sure that you keep following up with the same people, then it really does kind of get you somewhere after a while. And it really just like, once you have the relationships there, of course you have to continue kind of nurturing the relationships, but it gets a lot easier. They've already worked with you, they already know you.
Yeah.
And then they tell their coworkers that you're a great, landlord to work with. So then the word just kind of spreads, and it gets a lot easier once you kind of have a little bit of momentum going.
Yeah, I get messages, and you might have this too, where people reach out and they're just like, and this is me pretending to type on a computer. I'm pretending to be the. They're like, "Jess, I've reached out to recruiting specialists or whatever, blah 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 blah. Nobody's getting back to me." And I'll ask, this is me typing, like, "Hey, who did you reach out to? How many people did you reach out to?" Guess how many people? Like, guess what they'll say as a number?
Not many.
Yeah, like 4. And I'm like, dude, how do you expect to make something happen by continuing to connect with 4 people? The problem is that most people, when they get a door slammed in their face, they're done. Like, they're not going to try to persist anymore. They're not going to push the boundary a little bit more. In fact, like me, I think one of the reasons why, and I'm not here to talk about myself today, but I think I'm going to talk about what I feel I've been able to do to be successful, is when somebody says no to me, it's not like that's the only way. There's other ways around it. Like, was I not asking the right questions? Was I coming off in a tone that didn't make sense? Was I misunderstanding on something I brought up? Can you talk about the difficult parts of this business? Because I feel, and you and I were talking about earlier, 99% of people will want to see the success that you're having and want to emulate what you're doing, but 99% of people aren't willing to put in the work. So can you talk about like what that feels like to get rejected and like to just deal with because it's kind of frustrating, but I think you learn as you go to feel more confident, and you might not necessarily get a booking from it, but just knowing that this could have been a bad day, or you try it another day. And I remember you talking to me offline about a time where you were just about ready to give up, and then all of a sudden it clicked and it hit. And like, imagine if you gave up, you wouldn't have all these properties, be doing what you're doing. So can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the quotes that you said that really stuck with me is that if you feel like you're bothering them, then that you're actually getting somewhere. Yeah. So, because I had a lot of those instances where I felt like, I'm just like bothering these people, they don't want to talk to me. Why do I keep calling if nothing's like, I'm not getting anything out of it at first? But I really kind of held that quote, close, and I said, okay, like that means I'm kind of getting somewhere, so I just have to keep going. And I think my previous experience as a realtor, just always following up with leads and stuff, that really helped me kind of get through that rejection and get kind of used to it. So if you do feel like that, I think you just have to keep going and know that it's gonna pay off in the long run. Maybe not tomorrow, but if you keep doing it, you keep doing the same thing, it's gonna get easier.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think again, it's like you put in more reps, and the reps are the phone calls, the reps are the rejection, the reps are getting organized, the reps are, feeling uncomfortable like that. And you're right, that's something I do bring up. And recently what I've been saying to the students is like, how when you like knock on a door, like I don't know if you've ever done door-to-door sales. You're a sales guy, so you kind of get this. You feel like this sickness to your stomach when you got rejected and you're making that call again. It's almost like a nauseating feeling. When you get that feeling, lean into that, because that means you're onto something good. Like that, like, right. Oh my God, they're gonna hang up on me. They're not gonna want to deal with me. In fact, when I used to work in healthcare and I have to go in these hospitals and talk to people that like didn't want to talk to me. I remember talking to a doctor one time, dude, and listen to this. He turned his back to me when I was talking, and I just continued to give my speech, continued to talk to him. And then I finished, and he's like, all right, thanks. Had his back to me the whole time. Next week, I sat in the parking lot for an hour and a half before I actually mustered enough courage to go back in there and have a conversation with him. And that second conversation, it was exact opposite of what was the first one. He was super busy. I looked in the waiting room. There was like 10 patients in there. I should have known better that this doctor has a full waiting room, and of course he doesn't want to talk to me. And reps go in and talk to these doctors all the time. And I think that's what I'm trying to talk about right now, is that you might catch somebody on a wrong day. It might be the wrong time. It might be they got something going on personal in their lives. We can't take that personal, and we just have to, again, chalk it up and go another day. So can you kind of talk on that when you get rejected, those phone calls with the same person? Like, is that something that you just feel uncomfortable with, or is like, what do you feel out of that?
Yeah, in the moment, it's definitely very uncomfortable. Yeah. And you don't feel like, you're doing the right thing. Like you feel like a telemarketer or something like that almost. Yeah. And no one likes to have those calls. But I think if you come off like you're really trying to bring them value and trying to, make their job easier ultimately by bringing them a lot of quality properties in this case, then I think it's just having the mindset that you're trying to, add value and help them, and just know that you're not actually bothering them, that they're just really busy and overwhelmed. So you can't really take it personal.
Well, I can tell you this, my favorite calls are telemarketers when they call me, because I can put on these crazy voices. I hand the phone to my kids. Like when my kids were super little, I would hand them the phone. They're like 3 and they'd be like, yes. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like this business can feel like you are a telemarketer, but you said something that I really loved. At the end of the day, we're solving problems, and you've heard me talk about this in the class a lot. And we've watched, super successful people like, Bezos and Musk, and what they do is they solve problems, but on a massive scale. And what we're doing is we're solving problems on a micro level in a very specific niche. And I think once you start doing that, you're able to solve problems, that's where you start to build a business. And I think that's exactly what happened to you. In fact, when I talk to these relocation specialists, I don't feel like I'm selling anymore, because I actually truly believe in what I have, and I think you do too, where if that family that's lost their home doesn't take your property or want to stay with you, it's almost like you're doing a disservice to them, because you know how good your product is. Do you feel that same kind of way? It's not like a sale anymore. It's like you guys are missing out on this opportunity.
Yeah, because I think the level of quality, of properties that I provide, I know that it's better than others too. And they're often just in a hotel, so they're not really comfortable in that environment. So just being able to work really quickly to try to get it approved as quick as possible and coordinate them to move in, it's really rewarding, because you really are helping them, and they're always so grateful too at the end of the day, because they can actually, have a home to come home to at the end of the day, really.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where, where I got punched in the gut. And I think I've told you the story before where I had a family, we sat at the table and she was just like crying. They were all in 3 different rooms.
Right.
And she just basically said, I can't eat dinner with my family. Like that's the one thing we wanted to do. And I remember sitting there and just listening to that, and I was being, very mindful in that moment. And I actually came to tears when she was crying. I cry easy, so. And she, like, that's when I started thinking, like, man, this is not about me and the dollar amount anymore. Granted, like David's got a $44,000 booking. We can get into that in a minute, but that money stuff is cool, but serving a family like that is in need, and we talk about this, like, helping somebody that loses something, but when you actually talk to somebody and they're like, everything that I own is gone, my family's in a different place, we're moved out of where we used to be, everything that we know we're no longer have, like that's just a different feeling to be able to help somebody in that sense. So do you get that too, like that, there's not very many things in real estate that you can get like gratification from, and I think
Right.
this is one of them.
I think it's super rewarding because these people often went through something really hard, like a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like there was one, for example, recently where they had a car that drove through their living room where this woman was with her kids.
Yeah.
So it was a very just traumatic experience for them. So just being able to kind of be patient, really listen to their needs in that moment, it's like they're so grateful and appreciative, and they really just need someone that actually cares about them.
Right.
Because it's a very hard process dealing with insurance and everything like that. So if you really just take the time to listen to them and try to cater to their needs as much as possible, it's really rewarding, especially in such a difficult moment in their life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what you've been able to do is kind of bring the resources together, which is, I really love that you have that. You took the course, but then you kind of went your own way, and you're like, I'm gonna find people to connect with. Something that I didn't even talk about. You just like married it with your own kind of thought process, how your own brain works, and created this kind of system. And I'm really excited to see where that goes, because you're still fresh in this. Like a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff. I expect you to have an app, Dave, at some time, where it's like,
yeah, I'm working on it already.
Yeah, you see what I mean? So let's talk about acquisitions right now. So what is it like to acquire a property? So just like this, how do you find people, or how are they coming to you? And what's this property going to make? And you guys are going to see this footage of this home. It's a beautiful home. We'll have some B-roll stuff that'll be running through. So can you kind of break that down, how you acquired this property, or you acquire other properties, and what we expect to make from it? When I say we, it's like you're going to give me a slice of this.
Yeah, so I would say just for this particular property, so it was someone that I met in the AirVenture group, mm-hmm. and I made a lot of great connections just being in a group with like-minded individuals. So I think it's always good to invest in yourself in general and join different kind of, whether it's paid or unpaid. There's so many different groups out there, like in person and, Facebook groups as well. So I think just being able to network with like-minded people that either own property or are looking to acquire property is really helpful. And I'm very active on social media as well. So you can kind of everyone can see what I'm doing in the insurance relocation space, in the midterm rental game in general. So it kind of shows people my credibility as well. So I think just always networking and talking to people, is the way to get a lot of business, and people come to you because you can really provide a lot of value to them.
Yeah, and I watched that happen in real life, in real time, when we had that meetup and you talked about what you did. I just watched everybody, like, you started walking away and people were like following you. And I think that's really a way to build credibility, but also you're showing by doing. And I think that's a powerful thing, to be able to do something. And not only that, but you're a realtor too. And I think this is where a lot of realtors, you're learning something right now, that you can have an investor come in and buy with you. And I hope that's happening for you right now, where people are buying properties based off of what you're doing, so that you're helping them do that. And you can also analyze the market, which I think with co-hosting, analyzing a market is probably the most important piece of the puzzle. Because if you're talking to Oliver, or you're talking to somebody that owns these properties, you have to be super factual with numbers. And I'm not saying matter of fact, but ballpark. In midterm rentals, there's not any software out that can tell us
There's
that.
no formula that's going to tell you.
There's really not. And the insurance industry is like the opposite. Like there's not really, we can't tell how much we're going to make from a property. We don't know what it is. Again, unless you're like in Beverly Hills, which we'll talk about that in a minute, where you have these multi-million-dollar homes, you can expect that. But being here in Stockton or Modesto, what do you expect to make here in this property? Like, what do you expect to do here?
Yeah, so if this was a long-term rental, I would say it's probably in like the mid 3,000 range is what it would rent for, maybe on the high 3,000s. And then as a midterm rental on the lower end, if you're renting to construction companies, for example, or traveling medical professionals, it could rent between 5,000 and 6,000 a month. And then on the higher end, through the insurance relocation side, it can definitely get you between 8,000 to 10,000 a month. Because it is a 6-bedroom home, so it can cater to larger families or larger groups of people that are maybe coming temporarily to the area for work.
Yeah, I love that because I like bigger homes, and I think I remember when I talked to the owner of this house originally, he's like, I got a big house, like I don't know how I'm gonna be. I'm like, no, this is like the house you want because you can get those big bookings that are gonna be $10,000, and that's 3 times the long-term rental rate. In fact, I think 30, maybe 35. Like when I look at this, like, is 3,500 or 3,900? Is that an accurate long-term rental number? I don't even know, but you probably looked into it. But you're basically 2xing to 3xing that already, which is freaking phenomenal. And if you do get an insurance claim, you could probably even do even more than 8 to 10, to be honest with you.
Right.
There's a good likelihood because again, you have more people to sleep in a certain spot. So is there a certain type of property that you don't see booked often?
I tend to focus for the midterm strategy more on single family homes that are 3 bedrooms and up, similar to what you have done. I do get requests, for 2 bedrooms at times, but it's just not as consistent, I would say. But it's definitely important to, I think, have multiple industries in mind and always look at what supply is there. So I've analyzed markets and I look and see if there's a lot of different options, a lot of furnished options especially, and they're not really booked. That's a good indicator that you have a lot of competition, so the price isn't going to be as high.
Got you. Yeah, that's really good. So what would you say right now for somebody that's looking to co-host? Like say they just found this video. It showed up on their feed and they're like, I want to get into midterm rental co-hosting. What would you say would be like the first few steps that somebody should really think about before they get into this business? Again, I think education is important, learning about it, but then it's another to like connect with people. So can you talk about that? What you feel, what somebody can do after watching this video?
I think being able to just analyze a market, and like you said earlier, you don't have to know the exact numbers. It's always going to be kind of a range, right? Because you never know what the market will say.
Right.
But as long as you know on the low end what it could be and what on the high end, and then that way you can kind of average out between the two. You can't count on insurance relocation bookings year round. It's great when it happens, but you always have to have kind of another strategy. So I would say just build your network. Also start building your vendor list too if you want to co-host in a specific area. Having a good handyman and a good cleaning team and other contractors in place and having a good relationship with them, I think is really important because that's your team that's going to assist you, when you're co-hosting for other people.
Yeah, and I think again, like we talked about earlier, if you have a midterm rental, it'll become a natural progression just to kind of come into this business. And for me, actually I have another YouTube video where I talked about like, don't co-host unless you own a property. Like I literally said that. And I still found that to be true because I think you're going to make mistakes with co-hosting, and the owners around here somewhere, Oliver, hopefully David already knows how not to do that. But I think we're naturally going to make mistakes, but I'd rather make a mistake with my property instead of somebody that I work with. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out and co-host, but I think that there's just stuff that you learn when you get in this business that even if you're taught, like you have to figure out how to do it. So for me, it's like, I still feel that somebody can jump into this business and make pretty decent money. And like, let's talk about that for a moment. So what do you think you're going to be able to make like on this home? So we just said 8 to 10K. What's your percentage that you charge? Is there ranges, kind of things like that? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when I'm co-hosting, I know a lot of people do like 20% or more, but I do between 15 and 20% as a co-hosting fee. So I try to be really flexible with the owner. So if I'm not able to get the higher paying like insurance relocation claims, then I reduce my percentage to 15% because I want to make sure that they're cash flowing, they're able to cover their expenses. And I always want to bring as much value as I can to them. So it's between 15 and 20% of whatever the gross rent is, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So you have like a tier system.
Yeah.
Or if it's like between 4 and 6, I'll give you, it's 15%. Between 6 and 10, it's 20. And then if it's over 10, it could be 25%.
Yeah, and I try to have the owner tell me what number they want because it has to make sense for them. I don't really push my numbers on them. I really try to listen and see, what number do you have to be at?
I do that too. And I remember the first time that I started co-hosting and I asked an owner, can you tell me how much your mortgage payment is? She looked at me, she's like, why do you know that? And I was like, because I want to make sure you don't lose money by me working with you, because I don't want to do something that I don't feel is comfortable for you.
Right.
I think it's so important when you're starting a business, it's about us, but it's also clients are the most important, because guess what a client's going to do? They're going to go out and say, David did awesome. He was honest. He was truthful. He was transparent. You're ethical, because you don't want to just, you're going to make money off somebody and them not making money. There has to be this reciprocal, kind of connection there. So, let's talk about your portfolio size right now. Like, what are you doing right now in your portfolio? Do you have a lot of properties under your umbrella? What do you see happening?
Yeah, so for co-hosting wise, I have about 16 properties total that I co-host on a regular basis. And then beyond that, I have, just families. When I get a claim from the insurance relocation company, and it's not a property that I have necessarily. So I'll go out and I'll find a property that would be a good fit. So I just basically have an arbitrage with that owner for that duration of however long, that insurance claim is, whether it's 3 months or a year. Got you.
And I think what you're doing right there, that's going to be the future of this space. But I only think I personally feel there's going to be a certain amount of people that are really good at it, because as this industry continues to grow, there's going to be people that stick out. Like, you're one of those guys that's going to have, and I'm telling you this now for reference, when you get famous and have a lot of money and stuff, that you kick some of that down on me. You're building something that I haven't seen before, and you're paving your own way, which again is why I'm gravitated towards you, because I see this potential and I see what you're doing. And when you say 16 properties, you did that in literally 5 months?
Yeah, probably less than that.
Probably less than that.
Like 4 months or so.
Yeah, dude, for me that's like freaking. You know how long it took me to get 16 properties to co-host? I'm not going to tell you, because you did it in 4 months. But just again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of this video, it's like, your tenacity, your drive, like you have those things, you're check marking it. You're building something, and you know that. So I'm stoked for you, man, to continue to build on this. And I think that mindset of being able to help people, so important. You're helping the relocation claims, you're helping the families, you're helping other people that have properties that are listed, and you're just finding them saying, hey, I got a person that needs your help. Are you willing to do this with me? We're going to split whatever it is. You get a commission, they get their place booked, and you're good to go. So, yeah, man, I think that's so amazing, and I feel like there's a lot of potential with you, and you're making stuff happen already. So, do you have any things that you're doing now that you want to talk about before we're getting ready to kind of close this out? But let's talk about that $44,000 booking or whatever it is, man. Can you just give us a little snippet of that?
Yeah, so I have a pending. It's pending. I mean, it would get approved by the adjuster. It's not about the budget. It's actually I submitted it at $48,000 a month for a house in Beverly Hills, and they're coming from Hollywood Hills, but they want to be in a different area. So essentially, it's up to the family, because in that price range, of course, they know what they're looking for. And so with that, I'm essentially just got a claim in that area, and I reached out to my network. I already have a good network in that area, because it's not the first claim that I've got there. And they have very, very high-end properties. So I kind of just asked them, what are you looking, what's the rent that you're looking to make for a 3-month lease on this property? Mm-hmm. And then I kind of have an idea of the budget. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes they will share what the budget is, the insurance relocation. So then I'm basically able to make the spread, and the owner's happy because he has a lot of vacancies. Every month that it's vacant, he's losing a lot of money, especially when it's a few of those high-end properties. And the insurance relocation, it's very expensive for them to put them in a really nice hotel, especially at that level. The price for the hotel is
$3,000 a night.
Yeah, exactly. So they want to. It's just a win-win situation for everybody, and just being able to be efficient about it and have a really great network. You can do a lot of things with it.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think, understanding the insurance claim industry I'm still learning stuff, and I've been doing this for a while. So when I'm learning new things, there's always something. I've never heard of a $48,000 claim. So for you to be able to, that's like the plaque on the wall. I'm actually going to take a picture of you when I leave here and put it on my ceiling. That's the guy that had the 48. That sounded kind of weird, putting it on my ceiling. I don't know if I'm going to do that, dude. But I'm going to put you on my wall. I'm going to be like David when I grow up. Seriously, David. Can you believe that?
Appreciate that.
Is this getting weird right now?
What's that?
Is this getting weird?
A little too much, no.
All right, cool. Where can folks find you, man?
You can find me on Instagram. My corporate rental page is Domo Lux Properties.
What about anything else? Do you have anything else going on where people can catch you? Your real estate, what company do you work with, or do you not want to disclose anything?
Yeah, it's mostly just Doma Properties
Yeah.
is the company that I'm working with.
Got it.
Yeah.
So David doesn't want to sell you guys any houses. He's just all about insurances now. So.
Yeah, pretty much. Unless we're friends, then maybe.
And then maybe, there you go. Well, there you go. David's leaving real estate, the sales part, and now doing sales for relocation. So dude, I'm super stoked for you. I'm glad you're doing this crazy stuff and, you know, landing these properties and helping owners and all that stuff. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you on again, man. Hopefully we do some deals together.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a start.
I know. It's just 4 months in, man. Freaking crazy. There it is, folks. If you can't do it, look at David. David did it. So get out there, get connected with folks, connect with David, and we'll see you guys in the next one.